Video games, an ever-evolving form of entertainment. Since the beginning of video game history, from arcade games, to home consoles, to video game accessories, this form of self-engrossment wants a player to be in another world. As years have gone by, video games have been more and more accepted into family homes, where an entire household can enjoy many games to choose from. But in almost every family has a family member that says, "Oh, video games rot your brains." However, every time you're with said family member, like a pizza parlor, you always catch them on an old arcade game. In today's episode, I will explain why said family member says such a hypocritical phrase, but turns around and plays an old video game at an arcade. Alright, now that I've calmed myself down, I can act serious. Even though the scenario that I have said is usually not the same exact way, some older people do prefer those games, and those older people are usually our parents or grandparents. As each generation is born, there are less and less of the generation that grew up with older arcade games. So let's crack down on what makes the video game rot your brain phrase come into effect. First, let's look at arcade games in general. When a person walks into an arcade, most or all of the games have a demo playing, basically showing what is to expect if one is to join or play that game. Whatever attracts the eye will draw a player in. Now let's look at an arcade game. But not just any arcade game, but a classic Namco video game, Galaga. Galaga came out in 1981, after 2 years of its older brother and prequel, Galagan. The object in both games is to eliminate all of the enemies on the screen. In Galaga, there is a bit more than just eliminate enemies. Before I begin, I must apologize about the Player 1 or Player 2 banner that flickers at the bottom, but it's the only thing I can use to record for this footage, so please bear with it for a moment. On the startup demo screen, we are greeted with the screen that shows us the red and blue aliens point ratings that have two numbers that indicate different scores. After showing those two, it goes through a small demo and demonstrates how many points are received by destroying a Galagan. So if two of the red aliens are following the Galagan, grants me 1600 points. If one is following the Galagan, grants me 800 points. If none of the red aliens are following the Galagan, grants me 400 points. And if one is being stagnant, grants me 150 points. Alright, good to know. As soon as that is finished, the game goes through its demo. The player can see how enemies fly onto the top of the screen, and that the ship that is flying at the bottom can shoot at the aliens that are rising at the top. After that, aliens fly down and try to destroy the spacecraft. And wait, what is that, a tractor beam? Holy crap, it just abducted that player's ships. And it didn't destroy it? Okay. So another ship, and now the abducted ship is attacking the player? Whoa, it just took back the ship. Damn, now it has double the ship power and, ooh, it's just as easy to lose a ship. After observing the demo, the player can assume a few things. Aliens fly at the beginning of the level. Once they all enter, enemies will start falling toward the player, firing projectiles. The Galagans can abduct the ship so long as they're flying by themselves. Ships can be reobtained, and it's very easy to die. So now that we have some idea of what to expect, let's have a go at it. Alright, stage 1, here we go. Oh no, my ship's being taken. Whatever shall I do? Ha! I don't think so, alien. Take that, you extraterrestrial pincher-like thing. I don't care what you are, so die! Now, why is my ship not coming down? And why is it attacking me? No! Why? Why did you come down and attack me? I mean, I know how to defend myself, but why did that have to happen? The demo didn't tell me that. Well, at least I know how to avoid that. Alright, this time, I'll wait for my little friend to come down at me. Alright, here it comes. What the f- Okay, so I have two ships now, so there shouldn't be any. Holy, they're shooting at me! Oh, come on! Well, I managed to get to stage 3, so that... Oh, it's a challenge stage? I wonder what that means. What? Okay, so they're not coming to kill me, so I guess I can attack them. Huh, so the stage was meant to rack up points. Well, at least stage 4 can't be that bad. Alright, here they come, and... Damn it. So let's see what we have learned. If a Galagan is not coming down with your ship, do not attempt to shoot it down, or the player will not receive it, and instead, forced to destroy your ally. I really love this feature in the game because it tells the player it wasn't the alien's fault, it wasn't the projectile's fault, it was your fault for destroying your life. Even if you did get 1,000 points, it's still frustrating as fuck. Anyways, some stages do have enemies that come down and shoot at the player and might attempt a kamikaze. And lastly, the gamer is greeted with a bonus level on the occasion to relax a bit and rack up some points. If a player were to play a second round of this game, he or she would most likely avoid the hazards that the first time playing the game had. Eventually, if a gamer does get well at this game, they will be greeted with other sound effects, one that'll indicate an extra life that was received, and another that will indicate a blue enemy will turn into 3 different ones and grant bonus points if all of them are being destroyed during their flight. Also, another tune will play if an entire bonus stage is cleared without any enemy escaping. Now what does this have to do with people who want to play this and other older arcade games? One reason and one reason only. Arcade games back then taught gamers one-time lessons. When I was forced to destroy my own ship in Galaga, never again did I want that to happen, so I learned. As Stage 4 came around, I understood that enemies will not only shoot at you, but sometimes they may attempt a kamikaze, or do nothing at all. And so, I learned. Top-down arcade games had a basic way of teaching a player specific lessons so that they can avoid such a mistake from occurring yet again. I'll briefly summarize Ms. Pac-Man. The game revolves around eating pellets that are scattered around a level, while avoiding the AI-controlled enemies, ghosts. On the stages, there are 4 larger pellets that grant immunity to Ms. Pac-Man by turning all of the ghosts into a blue color for a period of time. During the duration, the player can use their chance of immunity to consume other ghosts for points, that is if they're still remaining a blue color, or use it to escape from a sticky situation. During each stage, food will occasionally parade around the middle of the stage before running back out. The only thing that the food does is grant bonus points. Also, after a certain amount of stages, a scene and/or a level change may occur, giving the player inconsistency. Thus, can possibly make a player want to play more to see if there are more cutscenes or levels that Ms. Pac-Man can offer. Like Galaga, Ms. Pac-Man does teach a player quickly on what to gain and what to avoid. Obviously, avoid the ghosts by weaving in and out of paths, and, occasionally, walking to the open edge of a stage to appear on the other side of the level. Collect all of the pellets throughout the level while considering the larger one will help grant brief immunity. After 2 stages are completed from the first one, the Act 1 scene happens and a brand new level is introduced. In comparison of Ms. Pac-Man and Galaga, they are also a bit mindless, requiring only little to remember. Arcade gamers want to jump into a game for a few minutes with little to no complications and may return for another round. Now think about what would happen if you were to show your parents or grandparents one of today's game, like say Final Fantasy XIII. I would not doubt that most likely it would be like, what's this big behemoth monster? Or what's a limit break? Or why does this music sound so awesome? All I'm used to is this. If a person who had an idea of what Final Fantasy XIII had and tried to explain it, what it was all about to your said family member who say video games rot your brains, they may respond in, oh, that sounds complicated, or that's a lot of things to do, or this game is full of witchcraft and you're worshipping Satan! In summary, Final Fantasy games, for the most part, are nowhere near mindless, unlike Galaga and Ms. Pac-Man. The Final Fantasy series has plenty of enemies to fight, each one having strengths and weaknesses, each story consisting of a long quest line, plenty of traveling, and much more. Galaga is, well, move left and right and shoot the aliens. Makes you wonder how the developers were trying to name this game. Some were like, let's call it Left and Right Alien Fighting Commander. Or dual-wielding pistol ships versus the Green Pinchers. Or how about just Galaga? Simplicity is what got Namco arcade game success, not to say that the Final Fantasy franchise is bad for being complicated. When said family member is playing those arcade games, they want to re-experience what the game had. Even the most successful people in the world want to have a few mindless activities from time to time. But now let's revisit the phrase, video games rot your brain. Why would said family member say such a hypocritical phrase before being caught in the act of playing an old arcade game? The answer is actually very easy. However, it's not the sensation of being mindless like playing a game of Galaga. It's not that you have to pay close attention on what's going on like in Final Fantasy XIII. It's actually the huge difference between the arcade games and home consoles. Pretty much every arcade requires money to play their games, and every game has a price. Every time a player wants to start up a round has to pluck a coin or two in the game. If a gamer wants to continue a game after a round is lost or all lives have been depleted, he or she must add a few more credits in order to resume. Whenever a continue countdown begins, the player has to choose whether or not to continue. If they choose yes, their session will continue. If no, the game over screen will eventually happen and the gamer will have to move on to another. However, what happens if a player wants to continue but runs out of tokens or money? That person will inevitably see a game over screen. If an arcader gets too carried away in a game, might not even notice that they're low on cash and may luck out on other games. This eventually forces someone to stop and think about resuming their game session or stop and move on. Home consoles have the luxury of not worrying about having to insert another quarter or two in order to resume a session. If a player were to die in a game, it depends on the video game on where the gamer will resume. But still, whomever is playing a home console game can still continue playing regardless of death. And being a gamer myself, I too fall victim of being carried away. The whole rot your brain term is more of a mindless term, as if you are not using your brain. Getting carried away in anything can be considered a mindless act. Arcade games have taught me as a kid that I need to be responsible with the tokens so I can get as much fun out of the games at the local Chuck E. Cheese before all my coins were depleted. The term video game rot your brains is more of a concerned comment rather than an insult. In an arcade, you spend time and money. On a home console, you spend only time. Spend your tokens too quickly and you may find yourself sitting around until you leave. Spending too much time playing a game up in your room can cause a day to fly by. Being careless with time can and will affect any person. If a person were to be more sparingly with their tokens at an arcade can cause more for a gamer to enjoy themselves. Playing a few games on a home console can be fun, but doing other things like playing outside can be just as fun. So said family member is not trying to be mean. Understand that they know that they understand that there is a limit to everything, and spending time efficiently is what they most likely want. After all, my parents never thought it would get better than a top-down game of Pac-Man. I never thought that Sonic the Hedgehog would be more than just a 2D platformer. Never did a friend of mine think that the Final Fantasy series would get any more beautiful. Video games will always evolve throughout time, but time is always moving forward. Spend your time wisely. Understand that your said family member most likely wants the best of you and can see other ways of spending time. Eventually, we will be able to tell our children not to rot their brains on video games, but then our kids may catch us on a Game Boy Color, huddled in a corner playing a Pokemon Red version. You can only experience so much in one life, so spend your time wisely. After all, you never know that the current game you're playing may create a legacy that will forever change the future of the video game franchise.